Ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalam ala Rasulullahi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. Alright, inshallah, we'll continue our Sirah session. We'll start off with the summary from the previous week. And then, inshallah, today we'll complete the migration of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and a couple of things which were done after the migration. So, when we talk about the migration of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and we started off, we talked about what happened in Darun Nadwa, which was kind of we can call it as a parliament of the Quraysh, where they used to make decisions, any kind of major decisions they were making, they would go and gather all the leaders of the Quraysh, and they used to make decisions over there. We talked about that, how they made the decision about preventing Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to migrate from Mecca to Medina, and they understood it well, the consequences of the migration of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. One of the main consequences was that could have caused trouble for their trade they used to do up north towards the Syria. And we talked about that when we say Syria in our books of the ahadith and the history. When it says the Sirah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what means the Syria? What means by that, it is not only today's so-called Syria, but rather Syria or Asham means that today's Syria, Jordan, Lebanon, and Palestine. This whole land was referred as Bilad al-Sham in the ahadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So they used to do the trade to up north with the Syrians, and which was actually Byzantine Empire. Yeah. And that was during the summertime. During the winter time, they used to go down south towards Yemen, and their trade was there. So when Rasulullah was migrating to Medina, Medina was on the trade route towards Sham. Hence, they had to. It would have become a threat for them that their trade would have been stopped or prevented by Rasulullah, because if he was migrating to Medina, that meant now Rasulullah would get power over there, because that's what the Nusra was about. That's what the authority of Rasulullah got from Al-Ansar. When we say Al-Ansar, I know we translate as helpers all the time. Al-Ansar is more than just helpers, because helpers sometimes feel like, oh, somebody's helping you to move the chairs or desk or this or that. No, helpers here meant that they were defending Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's the key thing. And that was the main concern for them, to prevent Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to migrate. Now, and they knew that Al-Aws wal-Khazraj, those two tribes who gave the bay'ah to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, oath of allegiance, they were fighters. They were fighting for quite a long period of time. Hence, they had these characteristics of to be the one who would fight for the cause they are involved in. And now, this for them, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was the cause. Now, while all this was happening, we talked about that when Rasulullah was going to migrate, because Allah Azza wa Jal allowed Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So that's a key thing to remember, that he migrated because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him the permission. And while this permission was given, before that, all the grounds in Medina were prepared for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to migrate to Medina. Mus'ab ibn Umair and Abdullah ibn Al-Makhtum radiyallahu anhuma, they migrated way before that. After the bay'ah was given to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they went there and they were doing the da'wah of Islam. And once there was a good opinion was built in Medina, many people became Muslims. Even though they continue to have mushrikeen there, meaning polytheists, there were Jews there, and I'll just show the map also of the Medina, how the map was, as it's mentioned in the book as well. And after Rasulullah migrated, because of the power Rasulullah now had, there were people who were hypocrites as well. You would not find munafiqeen in Mecca, because there was no benefit to be a Muslim. And while to show you are a Muslim, but in reality you are not. In Medina now, Muslims had power, Rasulullah had authority. So now we see hypocrites were there as well. Okay, so now the Meccans, they try to prevent Rasulullah to migrate. They put the bounty on the head of Rasulullah and Abu Bakr. Both of them, the bounty was 100 camels each. We talked very long ago, this 100 camel thing, whole thing came up from the incident when the father of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Abdullah bin Abdul Muttalib, was going to be sacrificed because of the nazar, or what you call them, the vow the grandfather of Rasulullah took, and he was going to sacrifice, and at the end he ended up talking to some those soothsayers who mentioned to Abdul Muttalib that you continue to make the draws, because Abdullah's name came out in the draws, that who should be sacrificed among the 10 sons of Abdul Muttalib. And then she told him that you make the draws between the name of Abdullah and 10 camels, and keep drawing until the 10 camels show up, and whatever number of times that the name of Abdullah came up, you have to sacrifice 10 camels for that. And that came out to be 10 times the name of Abdullah came out. Hence, he ended up sacrificing 100 camels. So from there on, the blood money was counted as 100 camels. For if somebody was going to be, if somebody has killed somebody and the family is willing to take the blood money, then that's 100 camels. So that's the story. And then the bounty was also placed on Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, was 100 camels. Yeah, and so was Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu. Many people tried to reach out to Rasulullah to find him while he was migrating. And we kind of talk about this this map as well. And it's important for us to understand. Look, Rasulullah ﷺ was a prophet of Allah. He was a messenger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we know that he relied on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He relied more than any one of us here. The tawakkul that Rasulullah ﷺ had, of course, there was absolute tawakkul on Allah Azza wa Jal. But at the same time, this is part of the tawakkul. Tawakkul does not necessarily mean, by no means it means that you do not undertake the action by fulfilling all the means. Yeah? And that's what we see in this picture, that he did not take a regular route. Rather, he took, he went, as I said, instead of going to Madinah, was up north there, and I put the picture this way. So, Makkah is here. Instead of going, just following this red path, which was a path that was paved basically for traveling. He went other way. First of all, he went south first. He stayed at Jabal Thawr, there's a cave in Jabal Thawr, which is a cave of Thawr. And then he stayed there for 3 days. And then when he went back, look, the trail, he just keep going zigzagging around the same path. That's because even if somebody comes back on the path, will not be able to find Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But many people tried. And there were some people, we talked about Suraqa bin Malik was one of them. And there's others also, we'll talk about that today, inshallah. But he went back, as we talked about. And then after that, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam came across Ma'bad, Atika bint Khalid, al-Khuza'iyya. So she is the woman, and she had a tent there, and she would have a spread there, and she's waiting for, if any traveler passes by, this was a normal thing for the Arab tribes there, to host somebody who's traveling. Yeah, that's a normal thing. You take care of the travelers. But she did not have enough. There was a time of drought, and her husband was away with all the cattle. And when Rasulullah and Abu Bakr came with Abdullah bin Urayqit, by the way, Abdullah bin Urayqit was the guide to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This person was not a Muslim. We talked about that last week. But he was a trustworthy person, hence he was hired. He was hired meaning he was paid for his services, and Rasulullah ﷺ and Abu Bakr, they hired him to take him from Mecca to Medina. He's the one who knew the whole path that we talk about here, that how he was able to take Rasulullah ﷺ safely from Mecca to Medina. Now Rasulullah ﷺ and Abu Bakr, they went and they talked to Ma'bad if she had any food, and she mentioned that basically they did not have much, and all the goats and the sheep were away with her husband. There was one goat sitting in the corner of the house, and she was very weak and did not really look like that she had any kind of a milk in the udder. Now, Rasulullah ﷺ asked her, why don't you bring that goat to her? And she did. And that was one of the miracles of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that has been mentioned in the books of the Seerah. And this is not only one miracle. There are many miracles that were performed by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Like, for example, this goat that did not have much milk, and now it started giving milk enough that the pot or the pan, whatever they had, it was full with milk. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam drank from it. Abu Bakr did, Abdullah ibn Urayqat, and even herself, and still more milk was coming up. And now it was full with milk. And then Abu Ma'bad, radiallahu anhu, because they both became Muslim later on, when he came and he saw the milk, he asked Ma'bad about where did this milk come from? Because he was aware of the goat that was in the house. So she mentioned about a blessed man who came, and she was referring to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because him just touching the goat and the milk started coming out of that goat. That was one of the miracles that he saw from his own. She saw from her own eyes. She was aware of that this goat was not capable of giving any milk. So she mentioned about Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he was aware of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that people were after Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But when he heard about Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he started asking, and he realized that he was really a blessed person, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And then he actually wrote a poetry about Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, praising him. And he was reciting that poetry about Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And from that poetry that the people of Mecca, they realized that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam got away, because the poetry used to travel. If somebody hears from somebody, likes the words, then he will start repeating to the others. And remember that Arabs at that time, one of the key things that they were really proud of was their language. That's the key thing, that they were nobody on the map of the earth in reality, from the perspective of power or wealth. As I mentioned, there was no oil there, like as is today, and the whole world is after them. And the real thing that they had was the language. And they used to even compete about the language. They used to compete like in nathar and sha'ar, poetry and regular writings, which is the nathar. And they used to compete. And they would hang the like a list of top 10 list on the walls of the Kaaba. This is how they used to compete. And they were really proud of the language. Hence Allah Azza wa Jal sent the miracle with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was in the language. The language of the Quran was the miracle. And is the miracle. Yes? Okay. Was the miracle, is the miracle. Even though, look, we just talked about the miracle that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam performed here. We don't talk about this miracle or many other miracles like Shaqqul Qamar, the splitting of the moon. Or you'll find many times that there was no water available and there was just a pot of water. Rasulullah put his hand in the pot and the water started gushing out of his hands. And all the people, there's one of the hadith talks about 80 people. They drank the water from that small pot. And they were all full, their thirst was taken care of. Similarly, we see things like in Tabuk, we'll see a small goat was sufficient for about 300 or 400 people to eat from. So these kind of miracles were also associated with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But the miracle that we talk about all the time is in the language. And that miracle is connected to the Quran. See, prophets were sent with miracles so you can distinguish them from regular people. And we know there will be no more prophet after Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So now, for the people who will come after Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because he was the last messenger, his miracle was the only one which is a living miracle. Unlike other prophets. Other prophets' miracles were, they came with the prophet and they're gone. While with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his biggest miracle that he challenged the people with was Quran. And that still exists. Even people are challenged to bring just one surah like the Quran. Yeah. So now here, when I was talking about the poetry that he was reciting, it was traveling because people were they are too much into the language. And this is how the Meccans found out that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam went away. Now he asked Abu Ma'bad about what did Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam look like. And this is interesting. Most of us, because we know that we don't draw the pictures of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? We don't take snapshots of, snapshot is a different story. It's a fiqh opinion, the thing, I'm not going to go into this. But let's talk about the drawing the picture or making a statue, right? Those things are not allowed in Islam. And this is why we don't have a picture of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Yes, people will make up something, whatever it is, but there is no confirmed picture of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam or even the Sahaba. Now, so she was given the description as she saw, and she did not meet Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam for a long period of time. But this is the best description that was mentioned in the books of the Hadith about how Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam looked like. And the things that I mentioned are like this: that he was not too tall, he was not too short. So he was, even though he was not too tall or too short, but if he's among the people, he will stick out. That you can tell that this is a person who's uniquely different, but not necessarily mean different in a sense of that he is different looking or something. It's just some people stick out among the people. Yeah. Now he was, as I mentioned, his eyes were, the white part is very white, while the pupil is very dark, and his skin was not too fair and not too dark. It was somewhere in between. And this is what people of Jaziratul Arab, well, they were wheatish color in general. Yeah. So when we say Arab today, as I've mentioned many times, Arab is not a race. I don't know how many times to stress this out. So we understand that. It's not a race. Anybody is considered as Arab as long as he speaks Arabic. Hence today, many parts of the world that we call them Arab lands, they were not really Arab lands. They were not speaking Arabic before Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam came and Islam spread to those lands. Yeah, many parts of the Africa today, they speak Arabic. Hence they are Arab. Unfortunately, there are people who try to instigate or some sort of incite fights among the Muslims to create these kind of feelings of as if the racism is something that it should exist in Islam or something, or nationalism or patriotism. Well, in Islam, once you say La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah, you are part of the same ummah. We all become brothers and sisters to each other. That's what Islam is about. Okay? It does not, I have given the khutbah before also, just to let you know that as we talked about this issue in the khutbah, I don't know if you guys were there. Allah Azza wa Jal says, Ya ayyuhun nas, inna khalaqnakum, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that we are the one who created you, min dhakaran wa untha, from one male and one female. And then Allah says, وَجَعَلْنَاكُمْ شُعُوبًا وَقَبَائِلَ لِتَعَارَفُوا. And we are the one who made you into nations. We are the one who made you into tribes. For what purpose? لِتَعَارَفُوا, so you can recognize each other. That's the only purpose Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created us differently. And these differences itself make us actually recognize Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the beauty of the creation of Allah Azza wa Jal. That Allah has created us all like this. And we are in the sight of Allah Azza wa Jal, are all equal except the taqwa. Inna akramakum indallahi atqakum. And in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the more honorable is the one who has more taqwa. And Allah is the only one who decides who has more taqwa. It's not you and me. Okay, so there's a description given by Abad. I'm going to pass on because of the time. Inshallah, if you guys want, you guys can go back to the book and read it. Actually, it's going to come at the end of the book. I just put it up there. Then Rasulullah Abu Buraida Aslami, he was another person who was looking for the bounty. And he was able to get to Rasulullah and Abu Bakr. But when he came to Rasulullah Rasulullah offered him Islam. And subhanAllah, that person who was there to get the bounty of 200 camels, he accepts Islam, not only him, but 70 people along with him. They all became Muslim by just one discussion that Rasulullah had with those people. And then he was very happy, and he was even took out his turban and put it on his lance, and going made a banner out of it. And he was happy that he has run to Rasulullah that he witnessed that the angels of security and peace had come to imbue the whole world with justice and fairness. Referring to Rasulullah the message that was sent through him. Then Rasulullah he reached to Quba. Quba was the first place. It's in the neighborhood of Madinah, not too far away from Madinah. When Rasulullah got there, Quba is after the... Okay, well, while he was on the journey, he also met Zubair ibn al-Awwam, radiyallahu anhu. He was the cousin of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. He is the paternal cousin, because Abdullah ibn Zubair's mother was the sister of the father of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Okay. In Urdu we say puppy. In Arabic is amto, right? Okay. Or okay. So that's Zubair bin Awam, who married to Asma bint Abi Bakr later on, and he was coming back from Syria, the trade he was in, and when he met Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Abu Bakr, he gave them two pieces of garments as gifts, and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Abu Bakr accepted. And then Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam arrived in Quba on the 8th of Rabi'ul Awwal, which is the month we are, I think still is Rabi'ul Awwal, right? We are in this month. This is the month Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam made it to Quba. And when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam arrived there, here Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam did a few things. One of the things that he did was he built the first, or at least put the foundation of the first masjid, which is called Masjid al-Quba. Now, when the people of Medina found out that Rasulullah has reached to Quba, now they started coming out daily to the outskirts of Medina to meet Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's a very interesting thing. And they are coming out, and this is important to remember when we talk about this migration. They were coming out in armors. Why would you come out in armors? Right? The reason was, now they are welcoming a leader for them, the ruler for them. Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, yes, he was a messenger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but he's arriving in Medina as the ruler of Medina now. So they were, and because they gave their words that they will protect Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, as we talked in the bay'ah, the oath of allegiance that was given to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, so they came in armors, yeah, and they would come to the borders and go back. When the sun gets too hot, they used to go back. And then one day, they were coming and going back. And on their way back, one of the Jews who was still there, he saw Rasulullah, three people coming from the hillocks, and he starts screaming to the Muslims, "Oh, you people of Arabia, your grandfather has come. He whom you have been eagerly waiting for has come." The Muslims right away, of course, they returned back. Now, something very interesting happened, and I will take a minute to just discuss that because it's important for us. When these Sahaba, Al-Ansar, they came, they saw Abu Bakr, of course, and they could tell the one was the guide, which was Abdullah ibn Urayqat. But when they saw Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Abu Bakr, many of them have not seen Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam yet. They could not tell which one was the Prophet of Allah. Right? They could not tell, and as a matter of fact, some of them thought it was Abu Bakr. The reason was Abu Bakr looked older than Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, even though he was younger than Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He was about 2 years younger than Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So they thought of it was Abu Bakr. Then when the sun was hitting Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Abu Bakr started trying to give him the shade, then they realized, no, he was not the messenger was Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Okay, now, why did I pause here? The reason is this. The time and era we are living in, most of the time, we think of somebody who's a scholar, he has to come in a big thobe and jalabiyah, or and has to be tarbush on the head, whatever those things are. There is no need for this, of course. I'm just wearing it because my hair is messed up, right? So the point here is, this is not the way Islam was. Islam is not about the way we look. And a person is getting more importance because the kind of a clothes that you wear. Yeah? It's more about that how much you're following Allah Azza wa Jal. Yes, there is a guideline, a code, dress code for us, male and female, both of us. But it's not the issue of how expensive are the clothes you will wear so you will get more respect from the people. Yeah? You'll find that, but unfortunately we are getting to that point. You go to a masjid, you will know which one is the shaykh. He has to be in a certain kind of attire, certain kind of awe that you will feel from the person. Oh, this is the shaykh. Yeah? Look, Rasulullah was among two people. Abu Bakr and Rasulullah, they could not tell. We talked about Abu Dhar Ghaffari before, yeah? Anybody remember the story of Abu Dhar? When he came to look for Rasulullah in Mecca, he used to come and sit to figure out which one was Rasulullah, but he was scared to ask. And he could not tell among the Meccans who was Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Only until Ali realized this guy comes every day, sits in Kaaba, and then goes away, and he's not from the area. So he started questioning him, that why was he there? Yeah? And then he realized, and then he's the one who took him to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to show him which one was Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And similar kind of examples you can find in other times. Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anh, visited by the ambassador of, I forget, was Faris or Byzantine. Anybody remembers the story of, was it Faris? I think it was Faris. So Faris is Persia. Ambassador came and looking for Umar bin Khattab. He could not tell where Umar was. He's looking for a palace of like a king or something. And he was told, no, he's at the masjid. He goes to masjid, people say, no, he's not in the masjid. He's sleeping under the tree. There's no guards, nothing. No guards were there around Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anh. So now, when he saw, he made a famous statement that حَكَمْتَ فَعَدَلْتَ, that you ruled and you were just among them. Yeah, and أَسْلَمْتَ وَنِمْتَ, and you are secure, the people are secure from you, and you slept. See, he did not have to have thousands of guards around him to protect him, because he was just, hence he did not need any of that. And of course, Umar bin Khattab was a tough guy. That's another part of it. But again, it's not the dress code, dress code is important, but not the dress. How expensive the clothes that you are wearing, that will point out to you, oh, you're the sheikh, or you're this, or you're that. And these are these are our heroes, the real heroes. Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Abu Bakr Siddiq, Umar bin Khattab, Ali, Uthman, and the Sahaba of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And you don't find them acting like that. So we should not be thinking of that as if that the real honor comes from what you wear. This is not where the honor comes from. Yeah? Honor comes from our actions. Okay, moving on. So that's what that part was important. That's why I want to talk about. So Ansar came, and then Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam stayed in Quba for about 4 days. Some of the reports talk about more days, but 4 days. He came in Madinah, Quba on Monday, and he stayed there for Fridays. Then on Friday morning, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he called upon his maternal side uncles. As we know that Amina was maternal side, which is Banu Najjar. And he asked them to come. And now they came, and they are the one who gave Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam protection, meaning they came with all the armors and everything, and in their protection, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam now started traveling towards Medina. On their way, on Friday, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam prayed Salatul Jum'ah in Banu Salim, one of the valley of the Banu Salim, with about 100 plus people over there. Yeah. Okay, and that was the first Salatul Jum'ah, by the way, of course, by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. While all this, Rasulullah entered. We'll talk about the entry of the Medina, but behind the scene, Ali radiallahu anh was left in Mecca. We talked about his migration, and he stayed in Mecca, Ali. And for 3 days he stayed behind after Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam left. Why did he stay? Because Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, as we have said many, many times, that he was referred as the honest, al-amin, and al-sadiq, the truthful one. So people, the kuffar even, the one who were giving Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam different kind of trouble, they would give their things to him to protect. So Rasulullah had things from those people, and the amana that he had, he left it with Ali radiallahu anh, so he can return back whatever belongs to whichever person. Okay, even all that Meccans have done, that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is still, he fulfilled his side of the deal. That if it was given something in the protection, he protected, and he made sure that it was returned back to the rightful owner. Okay, and then Ali radiallahu anh he migrated as well. And after a few days, they arrived in Rasulullah's wife, Sauda radiallahu anha, his 2 daughters, Fatima and Kulthum, and Usama bin Zayd, Ayman, Abdullah, the son of Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anh, the one who was helping Abu Bakr Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam for migration as well. And some of the family members, they they also migrated to Medina. Now, besides them, there was another daughter of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which was Zainab. And we did not talk about Ruqayya, because Ruqayya was with Uthman radiallahu anh, the wife of Uthman radiallahu anh. And the Zainab was another daughter of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. She stayed behind because with her husband Abu al-As, and he later on migrated as well. He was a non-Muslim, and the rulings regarding married to a non-Muslim man came later on. And then the rule was that either they become Muslim, then they continue to be husband and wife. But if they don't, then of course the divorce automatically would happen. Abu al-As later on, he became Muslim, though. We'll talk about that when the story comes. Okay, now when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Sahaba, they migrated to Medina. When they migrated to Medina, Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anh and Bilal, they got very sick. And there is some poetry written by Bilal also, how he used to remember Mecca. But when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam found out about that they were sick, and Aisha radiallahu anha, she's the one who mentioned, then Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam made the dua for the Medina. Allahumma habbib alayna al-Madina ka hubbina Makkah. أو أشد, meaning that Rasulullah made dua that make the Medina beloved for us the way it was Mecca, or more than Mecca even. Okay, and this is very interesting. Most of the people I've talked to, whoever goes for Hajj or Umrah, if you talk to them, they will all tell you, when they go to Medina, you find the people are very loving, and you feel very received, that you'd like to be in that environment. But when you go to Mecca, it feels harsh. The people feel, even today, you feel they are harsher than the people in Medina. And I believe this is from the dua of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that we love. Yes, you have something? Okay, so that was the dua of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And then Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he arrived in Medina, and I forgot to put that there. Okay, when he arrived in Medina, all the people of the Medina, they wanted Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to stay with them. Even though Ansar were not the richest people, but they all wanted Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to stay with them. And then Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he told the Sahaba that wherever this the she-camel of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would stop, which is going by the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is where Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would stay. Even though Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam wanted to stay with his maternal side of the family, but he was going by what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted from him. And then the she-camel stopped at a certain spot. Rasulullah still said, leave it alone, and then she moved forward and then came back to the same spot. And this is where Rasulullah said that whichever area he was in, he will stay there. And the she-camel was closest to Abu Ayyub al-Ansari's house, and Abu Ayyub al-Ansari became the host of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this is where Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam built the first masjid as well, in Medina, the first masjid, which is a Masjid al-Nabawi, which we remember. And now the place, the Yathrib, the name of the city was changed from Yathrib to Madinah Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And in short, we call it Medina now, but in reality, it means the city of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Okay, so that's what about the migration of Rasulullah was. And now I'll just take 2 minutes to wrap up another important aspect of it. Why I was saying that migration was very important. Look, migration changed the history of the mankind, this migration of Rasulullah. Because after that, Islam started to expand at a very, very fast speed, especially later on in the time of Abu Bakr and Umar and Uthman. Their time, the Islam spread very fast, because after this estate in Medina was built by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now Islam was not taken to the people like just you were just going to the individuals. Rather, it was the state's job to carry the Islam to the whole world. That became the center for the Muslims. And hence, we see that the few hundred people who started to establish the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Medina, in very short period of time, all of us know the last Hajj Rasulullah performed, there were about, one of the reports says 124,000 people were there in the Hajj. Others says 144,000 people attended the Hajj with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And then it continued to expand very fast. And this is why Sahaba understood that Hijrah was a very important incident of the history of the Muslims, that they, even in the time of Umar, when there was a need for calendar was there, and they were asking, how should we mark our Islamic calendar? Because somebody brought a document that says the month of Shawwal on it. He said, okay, which Shawwal? The Shawwal of this year, the previous year, or the next year? Yeah? So that became a question. So they said, okay, we have to have a calendar. Meaning they knew the 12 months and all those things, but calendar is needed. So now they started discussing among the Sahaba, how do we mark our calendar? Everybody has their own calendar. And every nation, they describe the calendar by what? Whatever is more important for that specific nation, isn't it? Even to us, how many of us remember things by saying, oh, this is pre-pandemic or post-pandemic? Something important happened in our lifetime, we connect things to that. Sometimes even within the family, we remember things by, oh, when, let's see, what's your name? Zayd. So this family will be talking like this, oh, before Zayd was born, something like this happened. Or when Zayd started going to college, something happened in the family. Or his age will be connected to some other cousin or somebody. Yeah? This is how we talk, whatever is important. And then on a nation level, you go for bigger events, which impact the whole nation. So when Sahaba were discussing, some Sahaba say, oh, should we start with the birth of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the calendar? Or when Rasulullah became prophet? Or when Rasulullah passed away? Or the migration? And they all concluded, that's the ijma' among the Sahaba, that is the migration, that was the turning point for the Muslims. Hence, we call that a Hijri calendar today. Isn't it? Now, that's the time that the mission of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that he was sent with, he started now expanding, which was to make this deen prevail over all other ways of life, all other adyan. Because it's from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's not because it's Arab or is brown or black or yellow or white. No, this is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it has to be given to all. And this is the starting point. And Sahaba understood it well. This is why Hijrah has to be remembered with the right perspective. If we don't look at it from the right perspective, then we will be way off even carrying the message of Islam. We were thinking of carrying the message of Islam is just converting people to Islam or reverting people to Islam. No, that's not only job. Yes, this is something we must do to carry the Islam to individuals. But the deen of Allah has to be established on the people so people can really see the justice of Islam. Otherwise, we can't see it. It has to be. And that's what Rasulullah did. That's why. And we have to follow what Rasulullah did. So I'll stop here, inshallah. And if there is any questions or comments, I'll try to answer them if I can. By the way, this map is there just to show what the Medina looked like in the time of Rasulullah. I'll bring it up next week again. So when we talk about how the brotherhood was established, we'll talk about that, inshallah, next week.